Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beat the Big Guys. I'm your host, Sandy Rosenthal, and today I have two guests that are also from my hometown, and that is New Orleans. Their names are Todd Reynolds and Rami. Oh my goodness, I forgot your last name, Diaz. I, okay. So I'm gonna start that introduction one more time. Okay.
Mhm.
Ramiro, I've been so focused on the Ramiro and the Rami Diaz. Okay,
Yeah.
here we go.
Either way, Rami or Ramiro, your choice.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beat the Big Guys. I'm your host, Sandy Rosenthal. And today I have two guests that are both from the same wonderful town as I'm from, and that is New Orleans. Their names are Todd Reynolds and Rami Diaz. Hey, Rami. Hey, Todd.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Have personally want to know so much more about the work that you're doing. So I am going to be so interested in every word, and I've been really, really looking forward to having you on the show. But since some of our listeners aren't familiar with your work, I'm going to take just a minute to introduce you. Okay. Todd Reynolds is the executive director of Groundwork New Orleans. He has over 35 years extensive experience in education, youth development and advocacy, project management, and design build construction. Todd has spent the majority of his career educating and advocating for young people from underserved communities throughout the country. Jaime Ramiro Diaz, or Rami, is the board president of Groundwork New Orleans. Rami is also an architectural and urban design leader of Wagner and Ball's Resilience and Living with Water practice. So thank you both for joining me today. We have two folks today, and I can't wait to hear about what you have to share with our listeners. Todd, how about you go first?
Sure, great. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for having us on. Like I said, my name is Todd Reynolds. I'm the executive director of Groundwork New Orleans. I came to Groundwork New Orleans in December of 2018. I am actually a retired high school at-risk principal. Um, Coincidentally, I had been sending a lot of my young people to Groundwork when I was a principal, and I knew how transformational the organization was to the young people that were in my care as a principal. So fortunately, I had some health issues and I had to retire. And the executive directorship popped up on my screen one day. I said, "Well, let me take a stab at this." So went through the process and thankfully got hired December of 2018, and have really really enjoyed and continue to enjoy the work that we get to do here um, at Groundwork New Orleans. Particularly the work evolves or surrounds youth and youth development. We have two programs. We have the Green Team, which is our high school program, 14 to 18-year-old young people who come to us after school for Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 2 hours a day, and then about 4 hours on Saturday. And while they're with us during their high school career, they learn about environmental stewardship, green infrastructure, community resilience, community outreach, and really it's an introduction to the multiple areas they can go to, whether it be when they go to college or when they go to work in the environmental field. Then we have what's called our ground crew, and that is an acronym, Climate Resilient Environmental Workforce. These are my 18 to 25-year-old plus young men and women who work with us. They are trained and certified in green infrastructure and also solar. But this group, we actually go out and we do um, large, medium, municipal sized, private, foundation sized, working with the communities, green infrastructure projects throughout the city. We've done probably about 35 projects since I've been taken over executive director. We've done some very large kind of key projects. Our Claiborne Avenue projects, where we built a very large bioswale on Claiborne Avenue. We were building a community park around it. You know, one of our bigger, our larger goals is to create one to educate our young folks, but two, while we're doing this, be able to create resilience assets around the city. When I say resilience assets, I mean, helping our city with stormwater management, helping our city with workforce development, and actually putting projects in the ground. So when we leave, we've done a project. We've actually left an asset for the community, whether it be stormwater infrastructure, rain gardens, bioswales, solar resilience assets. So the main goal is once again to work with the young people, to work with the communities that they come from, to have a collaborative working environment. As we don't go into a community and say, hey, we're here to fix you. It is a true collaboration where we partner with community organizations, and we work side by side to develop these projects for the communities that we've been asked to come in and help do the work.
Okay. Thank you. And Rami, what can you add to all this amazing work?
Yeah, I was just saying that was quite a run through, Todd. Impressive and well done. I think so I'm working, as board president. I've been board president now for at least 10 years. I've been on the board for 10 years and losing count. But Todd's been doing a great job executing the work and implementing the work that we've been in the city of New Orleans trying to implement since right after Hurricane Katrina. So this is now coming on 15 years, 16, wait, how many, 20? I can't do math right now. 18 years. Geez. I guess it's a sign that I'm getting older, that I can't keep track of time. But we've been working for 15 years on this green infrastructure approach to healing the landscape, thinking about the land as a sustainable enterprise and communities as sustainable and resilient. And in the history of New Orleans, we've had a lot of hubris about engineered systems being able to handle all the problems we have. So the Sewage and Water Board, and the Department of Public Works, with the kind of drainage system that we have that's supposed to drain all the water out of the city. One of the things we recognized, both Wagner and Ball and all of our compatriots that have been involved in this effort, and then groundwork as a part of that, we can't just fight our way out of and engineer our way out of all the problems with just hard green concrete. And so groundwork has been, since 2006, implementing green infrastructure in the city in a way that it might require a little more labor than the typical put it down the drain and pump it out. It's a different kind of labor, but it gives back to the community, it gives back to the environment. It's adding green space, it's adding facilities that you can actually see and touch and understand. And what we've been finding through implementing this work around the country now, not just in New Orleans, is that having workforce and community that is engaged to actually build it and maintain it long term is really, really important. And so groundwork is really filling that need in a way that's unmatched in other places that I'm working around the country right now, doing this kind of green infrastructure work. It's really unique, and happy to be involved. And Todd's doing a great job.
And I'm so excited to be learning about it. So my first thought is, I'm actually very close to a lot of the people that have been working on the charter movement, and how important our children are to the future of our city. And I love the idea of hearing about all these youngsters working on these projects after school, and also on Saturday, I imagine, if they choose to. So that's absolutely wonderful. I love hearing about all the resilience. One of the things, we all learned after Hurricane Katrina about the Army Corps of Engineers and their reliance on levees, higher levees, bigger levees, and we've certainly found out that's not the answer. We found out the hard way. And one of the things I remember learning when the Dutch came to New Orleans, they looked around and went, "Where's the water? Where is it?" It's such a different mentality. The Army Corps of Engineers, and in just the 18 years, we're seeing lots of changes in that direction. So let's talk just for a little bit about any resistance or pushback you may have had in trying to institute or get these programs going and these projects going. Like the city, has the city of New Orleans been particularly helpful?
Well, let me start with that briefly. I mean, I think I'm speaking outside of groundwork here, just kind of the larger trend of this work. And I think that this is requiring a sea change, this kind of resilience approach to working. And I was just on a conference call in Virginia and talking about how they just want to mow and blow, to use that term, right? And that maintaining green infrastructure requires a different type of work, and it requires an education in how it functions. Coordinating between agencies and understanding who is responsible for what. The Parks Department has always been the guys that do the trees and mow the medians, and then the Sewage and Water Board, they do the pipes that are above a certain size, and the Department of Public Works do the pipes below a certain size. And if you need to get a permit to cut a tree, you got to talk to these people over here. And so I think what Todd's been really doing a great job is working between those agencies and attacking it with a project manager's approach, or kind of a construction approach, as well as a sort of social side to kind of work together with people to make these things really, really happen. Todd, do you want to talk about that? Maybe the Shiloh example was a good one about the how you worked with the agencies to get them to talk to each other.
Oh yeah, so one of my I guess it was one of my second or first projects was working with. I got called in by one of our community partners, Dana and Ness from the Urban Conservancy, and she had this project she wanted me to take a look at, and wasn't a large project. It was probably about 100 feet long in what we call the public right of way, on this block that when it rained, water sat there for a week, 2 weeks. It didn't go anywhere. There was a catch basin was too far, and it just became a environmental issue, at a base level a parking issue. But there were multiple stakeholders. It was at a church, an African American church, but also the demographics of the neighborhood that the church was in had changed over. So there was a different community there. There were several groups that were in and around, and there were also a few city departments. One of the challenges, which I found out early, which we've been able to navigate as we move forward, is there's a lot going on at the city, and like Rami says, there are multiple departments. And one of the kind of in the early stages was you'll have 3 or 4 departments, departments of parks and parkways, streets, safety and permits. All of them could be involved in a 10-foot project. So it was trying to figure that out. So we really worked with the community members. The permitting process has been a challenge historically, and it has improved, but there's still a long ways to go when it comes to community groups being able to do this resilience work, to do their work and not be seen as your regular contractor, because that's not really our role. Our role is to go in and provide these resilience. There is a contracting component. So we were able to bring all the parties to the table, work through the process, finally get it permitted, and then get the job complete. But like Rami said before, one of the bigger issues of green infrastructure, and this is across the board, is maintenance, is maintaining it. Whatever type of asset that you build, it needs to be maintained for functionality's sake. Yes, it needs to have curb appeal. We want it to look nice, but for functionalities, and it's pretty simple. It's pulling the weeds out. It's making sure that the inlets are clear, and just a part of the training that we provide our folks is in that maintenance. But in the long run, we continue to maintain that project, and has opened some doors for us. We are still working with the city, trying to figure out this permitting piece, because we have steadily grown as an organization. So our project capabilities are growing and growing and growing, almost to the level of a kind of an independent contracting organization. but we are still a community-based organization doing the community work. So
Absolutely.
that has been a challenge, and we continue to kind of hammer our way through, and it's not just groundwork. We've developed a pretty strong coalition of grassroots organizations here in the city. So when I first came on board, I did a tour and I met everybody. And it was very clear, who was who, and everybody was fighting over dollars, and nobody was getting the dollars. So we decided to start building this coalition of multiple groups. So it's Waterwise Go South, Healthy Community Services, Urban Conservancy, LA Green Corps. So a good solid core of groups that we've been able to build a coalition where we can partner on grants, take the lead on some grants, support on other grants, but everybody's been able to raise their capacity by not fighting over it, but let's join together and work on these things wherever it's fit. So we've been successful there.
Good. Now you mentioned, and you're absolutely right about the maintenance part. Oh yeah, get a project built, fine, and then it's got to be maintained, no matter what it is. It might not be oil, it might be weeding, but the maintenance is critical. So how is it that you were able to solve that problem in the silo example?
Well, the shallow example, and I mean, there's multiple examples.
Okay, great.
One is changing the narrative, and when specifically we currently manage the Sewage and Water Board. They call it the Bayou St. John Demonstration Project. So it's a large project on Bayou St. John. We put in about 60 trees. We put in about 4 or 5 different green infrastructure. Green infrastructure performing, pavers, trees, rain gardens. But there was a 3-year maintenance contract attached to that. And that contract came out of previous work, working with the Sewage and Water Board, working with our other things, saying, hey, you have to put maintenance in these projects. Otherwise, we've actually shied away from projects that don't have at least 1 or 2 years worth of maintenance in the total overall project budget. So we've been able to kind of change that narrative, and we want to continue to do that narrative, where when we're doing these larger projects, there really has to be a maintenance element involved. One, if we're going to do a project and put our name on it, and then walk away from it, and nobody maintains it, and then it functionally is not working anymore, that doesn't look good on our end, and it's not teaching our young folks, the entire process of green infrastructure, environmental stewardship, green infrastructure installation, and then the maintenance of those installations.
And if I'm understanding this, that's where these young people come in. Are they heavily involved in this maintenance?
Like I said, I have 2 groups. So the green team, that's the high school group. They're involved in the maintenance, not at the scale that the ground crew is, because the ground crew is they're 30 hours a week. And we start them at $20 an hour. It's and they work. They understand green infrastructure design. They build the projects that we do, and then they maintain them. And then there's some cross-pollination between the green team and the ground crew, the older folks and the younger folks, where they can get involved in some of the maintenance and just understanding the concepts. Both groups get certified in the Center for Watershed Protection's Clean Water Certificate Program. So that's a program that allows, it's an entry-level certificate that high school students can get, and anybody can basically get. That they do not have to have a high school diploma to get that certificate. And it's an introduction to green infrastructure and maintenance. So both groups are very heavy in the methodology and then the actual implementation of the construction and the maintenance.
Gotcha. I so agree with you on this the value of partnerships. when you get different interests all involved in the same thing, the different interests have a different viewpoint and have different priorities, and they all kind of keep each other in balance, and it works out so well. And I'm so tired of coming back from Europe, not that I go to Europe often, but in Europe and other places in the world, structures are built to last a long, long time. I mean, buildings are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years old. Structures are still standing. And then in America, we don't quite have that same attitude, for lack of a better word. But okay, tell you what, I'm gonna pause for 1 second. Girls, what do you need? Okay, here, you can take it. Okay. School's out.
We understand.
Okay. All righty. Speaking of kids, and it's all about them. So yeah, I was just talking about that. Yes, that needs to change. This attitude that you build something that's only supposed to last 10 years, and we shouldn't be concerned. And the maintenance has never seemed to be thought about. Okay, so yes, and it is the children, and then I wanted to ask a little bit more about, okay, when you talk about resilience, can you elaborate a little bit about that? I've seen that word a lot lately. I kind of wonder if it means different things to different people. What does it mean to you?
For
you, Rami, you haven't talked a whole lot.
I was going to see what Todd said, but I mean, yeah, it's used a lot, and it's come to mean, different depending on which track you're looking at, right? In terms of this kind of climate resilience picture for cities and communities, I think there's a couple different tracks. In New Orleans, we really have been focused on water. I think that's been our in the aftermath of Katrina, but then also all the rain events that we have and the sort of surplus of water. And then most recently, we've had a drought. We've only had 33 inches of rain this year. Maybe it's gone up a little bit since I last checked, but
when did that happen?
30 inches less than normal, right? So I think there's other climate resilience factors that we're starting to really look at. Urban heat became very prominent this year with all the really hot cities, and New Orleans being, I think, the second hottest urban area in the country. First,
Yeah, we're number one.
We're number one in something. So that was an eye opener for the world, but we were already tracking it. We were already doing work to measure and quantify that. Groundwork has been involved in some of that over the years, but also tree planting has become very important. And Todd can talk about the tree planting, but then community resilience and what that means, at the kind of disaster resilience level and the sort of work that we've been touching most recently, after Hurricane Ida. Groundwork got involved with a really great organization that does solar and building solar, a fleet of solar bees, I think they're called, that can go out and respond in the aftermath of a storm to help communities with power and light, and once again talk about that a little more. But yeah, resilience in the groundwork sense I think is about education and jobs and sustainable communities, as well as a healthy earth and a healthy community. I will say that the sort of, from the work I'm doing outside of groundwork, the larger, and I think groundwork relates to this as well, climate adaptation might be another way of thinking as well, right? So resilience is coming back from a storm or from a shock, being able to bounce back like a willow tree, or like a bouncy ball, and maybe, be able to come back. But I think adaptation is starting to think about, well, how do we really change the place and change the landscape or change how our houses are built? And I think Groundworks has been involved in that as well, right? How do we renovate our 300-year-old city so that it can be here for another 300 years? And that's a little bit beyond resilience, right? That's really for us, New Orleans. We're not, the idea of renovating is not a concept that's maintaining the city, right? We've made this investment in this place. We need to maintain it. And so that's my view. Todd, do you want to expand on
that? From the groundwork and the groundwork community, when we talk about Groundwork USA and the other 21 groundworks around the country. Resilience for us is really down to the street and the community level, and it's basically, it doesn't take a catastrophic storm to put people out of place here. It takes an afternoon storm where, and that's the kind of level that we've starting to work on, is working with communities to provide, to make sure that their community is resilient, that it can survive an afternoon thunder boomer that drops 3 inches of rain and the entire street floods and they can't walk into their own house. Or, it can, we can plant these trees in their neighborhood where there are no trees, where it's all concrete, and we're bringing in tree canopy, and we're bringing the actual physical temperature down 7 to 8 to 9 degrees from where it was before. So it's basically, it's creating resilient communities, or helping the communities build their resilience to climate change and to all the external factors. That's why we've kind of, and I always tie this into youth development. How many ways can we, how many hooks can we get into our young folks? How many different avenues can we train in to give our young folks multiple opportunities and multiple ways to advance, whether they're going to college, higher education, or whether they're working. We've got our green infrastructure. We're really bolstering up our solar certifications. We do now do solar certifications. And we are building a solar resilience center, which young people will be able to work on in the development of that, once again, leading this resilience asset. And then we're actually working with the Sewage and Water Board now to delve into the need for workers at the, there is a lack of there's a lot of spaces available in most local water municipalities. So we're going to address that need also. So it's finding ways to create resilience, to do workforce development, and to keep multiple avenues for young people to kind of move in and out of, decide what they want to do.
Sounds good to me. Now, we've talked about some of the challenges that you've had, and I can really appreciate it. I once tried to put a historic plaque in the ground, and it was mind-boggling how many different agencies I had to work with to do something that seemed pretty simple. And so we've talked about the challenges, but you know what? Let's it's just the season. Let's talk about one of your success stories. Maybe even better, one that you thought would be really difficult and turned out wasn't that difficult. So is there a success story that you'd like to share with us in your work with Groundwork New Orleans? How about you, Rami?
Pausing here because there's been so many. I'm not sure what the, I think that, I think that for me right now, this is going to sound, Todd, you're going to, don't blush here, but I mean, I think that really we spent a lot of time building up this organization. And when Todd hit the ground, when he joined us, just the explosion and the quality of the work and the amount of work we've been doing, I think if the project of building the organization has been really satisfying to me. Right. And I think that's been, we definitely need more board members. We need, we need more resources, and for sure. But Todd's been doing a great job with actually implementing projects that, we've been dreaming up for years, and for him to actually, grow beyond because we have a very, the board is we a fantastic board, a lot of landscape and engineers and people that are involved in the resilience sphere, and to go from being the board sort of driving this work to now an executive director that's taken it and is really running and outpacing us to even keep up with the amount of things that are going on. It's really fantastic. And the solar stuff is something we had kind of tipped our toes in, but now it's really taken off. And I think that this resilience hub thing, we've been talking about it for years in New Orleans, and we're finally implementing it out in Gentilly. And I'm pretty excited to see something where people can go plug in after a storm and keep their oxygen generator going. after a storm, or connect with their loved ones. I mean, that kind of work, and the ability to bring organizations together, working with Footprint and others, and I think that's been really Todd. That's the project I'm proud of. Todd.
Incredibly. So we're about running out of time. Is there anything, Todd, that you'd like to add before we sign off?
I would reiterate, and our success. I'd love to take all the credit for it, but I can't. It is because we've been able to build this coalition of organizations here in the city. Pretty much, we don't do the same thing, but we've all got pretty much the same like-mindedness of we want to help our communities become more resilient, and we want to help the young people who live in these communities. So I think that is our strongest strength, and very proud of the coalition that we've been able to build and get the work done while we're building it.
That's great.
Conglomerates can go out the door. Coalitions rock.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. Now, for our listeners who I heard you mention, you could use some more board members, more funding. For our listeners who would like to in any way contribute, maybe with manpower, where would you direct our listeners to go?
They could go to our website, and there is a info@groundworknola.org on there. They can always reach out to I monitor that personally. And they can always reach out to us that way. We also have a telephone number on the website also that will come directly to me or into my inbox, or Riley Essert, who's my environmental youth programs director. She runs the Green Team and several other initiatives on that side of the organization. So just mainly through the website, and we're pretty diligent about getting back to folks as soon as we can. And if folks want to donate, they want to participate, they want to give us a lead. That's kind of the way to get to us.
Okay, well, thank you again, Todd Reynolds and Rami Diaz, for joining us today. And thank you, the listeners, for being with us today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast on all of your favorite platforms. And remember, no matter who you are, you too can beat the big guys. Okay, so stay with me.
Mm-hmm.